Welcome to the Jobs and Work podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kendra Jason. I'm a sociologist and workplace equity consultant, and I will bring guests onto the show who reflect the diversity of the American workforce. On this podcast, I challenge you to think about work. Why? Because in America, we spend more time at our jobs than anywhere else. But how often do we really talk about work? And I mean all types of work: women's work, essential work, retirement, being your own boss, how to handle your boss, and so much more. Please subscribe and share the Jobs and Work with Work for Change podcast. You can learn more about my consultancy that supports this podcast at work4change.llc.com. Hello, and welcome to episode 49 of the Jobs and Work with Work for Change podcast. I am your host, Kendra Jason, and I have Kris with me.
Hello, glad to be here.
All right, so one very exciting, first of all, Happy New Year, everyone. This is our first podcast of 2023. I just want to give a quick shout out to my sorority sisters of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. We will be celebrating our 110th anniversary this Friday on the 13th. So for all of you Deltas and sorors out there, I wish you a fun-filled weekend as we celebrate our Founders Day. So speaking of Founders Day, we have another Founders Day to celebrate, and that is the founding of Work for Change. Work for Change turned 2 years old on January the 5th. And so that always inspires a time to reflect, to think about where we're going next, to think about where we've been. And so that's really what inspired this conversation for me and Kris to come to you on today and share some of the more like intimate things that we may not speak of as much, right? And so a part of that is, a lot of people ask me indirectly or directly about courage and fear in starting my own business and even Work for Change. And so I want to talk to you about some of the experiences that I had and feelings that I had over the last 2 years in this business venture. We'll even talk about maybe some regrets that have come along the way, and then what to expect next for Work for Change. And so I'm really interested in this conversation and sharing this time with Kris.
Thanks, Kendra, for including me in this conversation and inviting me to be a part of the first podcast of 2023. I think about how far the podcast has come since the first one, which was almost to the date 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And just, reflecting back, looking forward, being present about what we do and how we do it and why we do it is all stuff that I love to talk about. So I want to ask you, Kendra, as the founder and president of Work for Change, if you think back on the 2 years, right? It's gone by really quickly.
Yeah.
What were some of the fears that you had in the early days? And what are your thoughts on those fears now?
Oh, good. So I think the first thing that comes to mind is that I am, gainfully and full-time employed. I'm a professor. I have been in my current occupation for 10 years. So at the time of Work for Change, I had been in my current occupation for about 8 years. I'm very visible on social media. And so one of the things that I, kind of quarreled with myself is, how do I start and promote a business and navigate that my colleagues from my full-time job will be seeing this information as I promoted it? And so a lot of people actually have this concern because a lot of people want to, or their first inclination is to hide their self-employment or their business venture from their full-time employees. Some of it justifiably so. There could be questions of, commitment and questions of, time. Some people having formal agreements that you can't spend so much time doing, whatever the case is. But a lot of times, those are things that we think, but not things that are actually in reality or in contract with our current employers. And so anyway, I decided that, if I was going to do Work for Change, and the best chance that it had of being successful was to get its name out there. And by putting this name out there, I had to be ready for any feedback, any questions, any scrutiny, any criticisms that may come from my colleagues. And I'll tell you how that has been experienced. I have not experienced any criticism, any scrutiny any negative feedback from my colleagues in my full-time profession, as a whole profession, not just in my workplace, but in my whole profession of sociology. Now, I don't know what people say about me behind closed doors, but what I could say, to my face, what people have said is really encouraging and inspiring, even to the point where my current colleagues, again, not in my workplace, but in the field in general, will ask me, like, how did you start? Like, what do you do? Like, how do you do it? Because they themselves are interested in getting compensated for the knowledge that they have. So one of my big fears was, what would this look like to my employer? Will my employer question my dedication and my commitment? And actually, I've had formal conversations with my with my administrators and people in human resources and legal, and everything is above board. Yeah. It's actually supported in my organization. And so that was one of the things I was like, whoa, I was under the impression that I had to hide this, or people were going to be coming for me and like really, looking at me with the microscope, but actually it's been almost the opposite.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I have had this similar experience. I mean, unlike Kendra, I left my full-time academic role to do consulting full-time, and now I do that work part-time. And yeah, people have been excited and really interested and curious, like, how does that work? And when did you know it was time to kind of make that change? And it's really exciting to see it, the growth. I was gonna ask you this question at the end, but I feel like it's a good time to insert it in now, is everything that you just talked about, making that change, having the fear, being a little bit apprehensive, like how transparent and promoting, do you, should you be, and what will happen if you do? How is what you've done, Kendra, 2 years ago, in the 2 years that it's been, starting your own business, running a successful consultancy, how is that especially meaningful as a Black woman?
Oh, it's extremely meaningful. So as a sociologist of work, I know the stats on, how small businesses fail or not. I know the research on the lack of access that Black women have, the glass ceiling that women in general, but especially women of color, face in corporate environments, and limitations in social networking, and people just being willing and able to see us as competent, to see us as valuable, to see us as value added to what they have going on. And so I know the significance of me being out there and promoting success and health in a business. Right. What's particularly great for me, and this is to your question, is that it has been so fulfilling to hear how I inspire and empower other Black women. Some of them are interested in starting their own businesses and do. Some of them are interested and don't. And then some of them are just like, go Kendra. Right? I see Kendra go, and so maybe I can go too. This other thing that I wanted to do that maybe has nothing to do with starting your own business, but just reevaluating who you are in the space that you're in. And they see me do it through social media and through conversations, and they see themselves and they can see it for themselves. And so, I am always, always, always so invested in uplifting Black women in particular, but women across the board, people of color across the board. And so it's been really fulfilling to see that. And it's also been really fulfilling to actualize that a lot of the challenges and pitfalls that I experience, how do I say this? A lot of the challenges and pitfalls that I experience, I am able to navigate and overcome. Even being a Black woman with all of these, disadvantages or lack of access or all the other things. And I'm not ignoring my privilege. I know I have a PhD. I know I'm middle class. I know I'm married. I know it's a lot of things that work in my privilege. I'm not forgetting that, but to see and experience that I can navigate my way through those things and they don't count for my demise and I can keep going is self-empowering as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, to your point about empowering other people, and I think change is inspiring, right? When we see change happening, we often feel like we're in ruts and like the world is heavy and our own lives can feel heavy. So when we see change, that's inspiring. When we see other people's success, that's inspiring. And I think when we see both change and success, that is in the pursuit of the greater good, that is in pursuit of equity and justice, then that's like trifecta of all the things. It's like good change in pursuit of the greater good and success in the pursuit of that. And I think that's awesome. And that's what we get to feel really proud about. So speaking of what I'm proud about, I wanted to know, 2 years, a lot, Kendra, has happened from January of 2021, sorry, 20, right, to January of 23. What are you most proud of, or one of the things you're most proud of as it relates to work for change?
Yeah, at first I was like, oh, it's going to be such a hard question, but it's not. I'm so proud of my participation in helping people start their own businesses. Like, it's so funny, and Kris, we've talked about this before. The Starting Your Own Business workshop, which we had in heavy rotation in 2021 and half of 2022, was not even a part of the business plan or the vision of Work for Change. It was a moment when, after I had gotten my LLC, so I've gone through like all the preliminary steps and the organizing steps, and I got the paperwork. And I said, you know what? This was kind of difficult because I just didn't know what to do. The process itself actually wasn't difficult. It's basically like if somebody gives you a secret, now you know what to do. But if you don't know the information, everything just seems so much grayer and murkier, or just.
It's not hard. It's just unknown yet, right? It's not
just
like hard.
Unknown yet, and one of the things I thought about in particular is when I help people, apply for their LLC, and I say, Google, the state business, government business website. I can't think of it at the time. Google that, let that web page come up. I said, but first, there are going to be all of this spam that comes up and all these sponsors' websites, and they're going to say you're going to have to pay this and this and this and this, but you don't have to pay any of that. You go straight to the government licensure website, and it's only X amount of dollars. You don't have to pay anything else, right? I had to figure that out on my own. But when I first went through that website, or when I first did that Google and then went through the state website, it was so overwhelming because I'm like, do I trust these websites? Do I need this information? Can I, navigate the density of the information? And then when I gave, someone else an instruction, maybe Kris Maycumber, it was just a quick email with like 5 steps. Go here, do this, do that, do that. And I was like, wow. So anyway, so when we offered the Starting Your Own Business workshop, and we had dozens of people, especially Black women, but others as well, take this workshop, and then, they'll email me with a picture with their LLC, or they'll tell me about their first client, or they'll tell me about their first showing, or they'll tell me about the first time they got money or applied for a grant. It's just, I can't even describe, and I always say, who knows what happens with small businesses, just like anything else. You can do it for 6 months, you can do it for 6 years, you can do it for the rest of your life, but having those accomplishments, pursuing and accomplishing something that you wanted to do is really a proud place for me. Because again, I didn't see it as a part of the vision, but it's that domino effect that I can see is impacting other people as well.
Yeah, I think something that I've experienced to a probably smaller extent as I started my own small business last fall is the community of other small business owners who are really excited to share what they know.
Yep.
Unlike other industries and settings that we have experience in, where it's like, you got to figure it out on your own. There's a culture of like, you should know this already. I'm not necessarily here to answer questions. That's not what I get paid to do, right? Things like that. Like that mentorship is kind of hard to come by. And I feel like small business owners are really supportive and excited when someone else kind of enters into that space.
Yeah.
And so who do you lean on? Since it sounds like you're a mentor and a source of inspiration to others and have been, Is there anyone who you want to sort of, by name point out that has been one of your like go-to people in terms of inspiration?
I do. I'm going to take a note because there's one more thing I'm proud of that I wanted to get in, and that is the equity work that we do. I mean, it's the foundation. It's not just that we do it, but how we do it. Kris and I often say, especially in the middle or the end of a contract, is that, and this is once the contract is in full, fully engaged, and we say, you know what, like, equity work is not fun work in a sense. Like, we're not coming in promising to be entertaining or charismatic, even though we are, because we have great sense of humor and we have great personalities, but we're there to say that, like, doing this work is real work. And the way that we do it is professional, but it's engaging, and it's on a personal level, and it's on a, meet you where you are, but we're still going to push you kind of level. And employ the people, our clients who hire us, especially their staffing, sometimes they're just like, oh, we wanted this to be fun, or, oh, we wanted, we thought this was going to be something different. We actually have to do work. And we're like, yes. And then at the end, they say, man, this is not what we expected, but we're so glad that you pushed us to do these things and to be accountable, right? And to build this into our infrastructure. A lot of times, because of previous models, when you have a consultant come in, sort of a model where they, and I say this with respect, they kind of spoon feed you the information, they kind of give you a handout, and then it's over. You're like, oh, that was cool to do. We got 3 hours off and a lunch, but what Work for Change does is that we challenge you, and we integrate you, and we hold you responsible for embedding the work and practices. Because I always say, like, you can have the idea and the ideal to be equitable, but if you don't do it in practice, then you're still that same organization. So pushing people from ideal into practice, even when it's uncomfortable in the middle, is something that they appreciate on the end. And I'm really proud of our team and our clients for trusting us and walking with us through that process, because it's not as easy as people think that it is. All right. Yeah. So to answer your question about by name, who would I credit for who I go to, and that's just really easy. It's Janita Castro. And so Janita was a woman, or is a woman I met and an organization called Outdoor Afro. She was the leader of the organization, of the local chapter at that time. And I just was so inspired by how she lived her life, how she centered her family, in the good work that she did. And then she was recognized as, I think, a 40 under 40 in our local city. And then after getting that recognition, after being at the height of her business, of her corporation, she decided to start her own consultancy, or do her consultancy full time, right? I think she was doing it a bit before. And I was like, wow, for someone to hit the goals, to get the acclaim, especially as a Afro-Latina woman, right? Married with children, right? To get all the acclaim that we work for through education, through training, through just the grind of, working through these predominantly white organizations, and then to get to a point and say, you know what, now I'm going to do me for me and my community. Yep. And
we interviewed her too on the podcast. If anyone's interested in checking out her in the flesh, Zoom flesh, right? You could check out, I forget which episode, but we definitely had her on during 21.
Yeah. And so she's always been an inspiration to me in that sense. And I'll just say really quickly, that goes back like to the question that people are always watching you when you're living your life, right? There are people, and I'm not just talking about social media voyeurs. I'm talking about there are people who are really watching you and who are really interested, and they may not say anything to you. They may not question you. They may not even tell you that they're interested in your life, but people are watching you from afar, and we're inspiring people and influencing people in all type of ways, way beyond our cognition of it. So anyway, after Janita, started, her business full time, and she's, reached her own levels of success, she offered to be a formal mentor to me and some other women of color who were interested or had their own small businesses. And so she's someone that I can go to in a formal and an informal capacity to just kind of help me think through and walk through those things. Another person, really an organization, is SCORE, SCORE.org. And that is an organization that in preparation for starting Work for Change, I did a 3 to 4 month engagement with them on how to start a business, learning the nuts and bolts of a business plan and all the other financial considerations to starting a business. And then they offer formal mentorship. And so I take advantage of that. And so I meet with my mentor, Kathy. We meet about once a month and just do check-ins. And then at the end, she says, okay, what do you need help with? So that next time we meet, we can be prepared and have that conversation. And that's just invaluable. And I think that's just a part of the key to success.
Yeah. And I feel like we do that with our clients. Like, what are your goals? What are the supports you need to get there?
Yeah.
And how can we help sustain that? How can we help build that? How do we help equip you? All of those things. So one of the things that what you just talked about made me think of is more specifically the advice you have for somebody who is teetering right now, but maybe still in that fair place for whatever reason, financial, personal, et cetera. What's the advice you have for them to take that step and to start their own business?
I would say go at your own pace, but don't procrastinate. Move forward, listen to yourself, listen to your body, but don't fall to excuses. Right. And so one of the big things, of course, with our starting your own business workshop, the first part, like a whole 8 hours, we don't even talk about a business plan until the second day. The first day is all self-work. The first day is like all self-actualization. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about your insecurities. Let's talk about, the things that keep you from being the person that you want to be. Right. And then really evaluating, are those reasons a legitimate reason that is in the way of you progressing, or if we're just comfortable or scared or insecure about moving forward. So that's a really big piece for me, is always moving forward. And I do have a go-getter attitude, like my husband all the time. There is something about me. It may be because I'm from a working class background, I'm from a working class, working poor background. And one thing, in my professional development, especially being a scholar of work, and this is just real, there is so much money out there to be made. There's so much money out there to be made. There is so much time and freedom that could be ours. Right. But we're not traditionally trained in a school system or education system to live for our own time, to live for our own leisure, and to pursue jobs that are self-fulfilling. We're taught to get a trade and to get the education that will provide for our families in a food, shelter, and water type way. And then maybe a vacation every summer or so. Right. And that just totally negates, the soul of the individual and the self-satisfaction that we could get from ways of being compensated. And so I really just would push people to really think about a bigger picture and to think about, we only have one life to live. I always say, if COVID taught us anything, it taught us that. And, what do you want your story to be?
Yeah.
Right. And then what steps do you need to take in order for that story to be true?
That's great advice. I would say too, my advice for someone, because you're a natural leader, I'm a natural collaborator. I am like MVP on a team, right? But I'm not necessarily the coach, right? Although I have coached. Point being, my advice to be, if someone is hesitating, find a partner, find a collaborator, right? Like Kris and Kendra work well together, right? We fit together. Not everyone's going to have what we have because we have like 20 years of friendship and we share a brain in so many ways. But for someone, it might be finding that person. If you feel like you don't want to do it alone, it feels like it's a lot, the sort of business aspect of it, if the idea of managing your own finances, finding someone who's willing to work with you, who wants to work with you, who shares your vision, who shares your goal for freedom, independence, all of those things. Like, you don't have to go the road alone.
Yeah.
So, I know that can come with challenges. Sometimes things don't work out, right? Sometimes friendships can get challenged with business and things like that. But my advice would be, if you don't want to do it alone, find someone who's willing to work with you and, wants to collaborate with you.
And it might not be friends or family. And I think that's a couple things. One is, some people have the idea, like, I don't want to add anybody else because I don't want anybody messing me up, or, but if you do it by yourself, then you're literally by yourself, right? Yeah. And so if you don't have a circle, which is fine, of people who you feel like you can trust, or who are equally motivated to start a business or something on the same page, then that's a great opportunity for you to seek out networking opportunity, trade associations, professional associations, where you can get with like-minded people. And then you can say, hey, I do this and you do this, maybe we can do it together, right? Yep. And so, Kris and I do have a shared background with equity consulting, but I don't do one bit of video work, right? I don't do one bit of, digital archive and storytelling. That's Kris, 100%. Right. And so the thing is, I have my skill set, Kris has her skill set, and we came together and made something really unique. And we offer a workplace equity consultancy that does digital storytelling. Yeah. So, the formula worked for us. And I just hope that people don't hold themselves back by their feelings of lack of trust or lack of access to other individuals.
Right. Well, Kendra, what's next for Work for Change? 2023, what can we, the collective we, and those listening and watching, look forward to? What's new and exciting on the horizon?
So one thing, I'm really excited that, number one, that the work continues. We have some work from 2022 that folds into 2023. So it's really comforting to have work out the gate. We do have some new clients already set up for 2023, and I'm very, very excited about sharing that news, with you as well. But you know what, Kris? I mean, I would say in general, we're just looking for growth, right? We're looking for, and not just growth in like, let's get more clients and do more business and earn more money, but like growth as individuals, right? Growth as consultants, growth in our partnerships with other people who are doing equity work, with other organizations that want to make the world better through this equity work, right? And so that's the thing that we're looking for. But going back to what we were talking about earlier, is that in owning your own business, and especially consultancies, where literally the work falls out the sky. Like, I know what my first 6 months of 2023 is, but I don't know what the second 6 months of 2023 is. It just depends on if we get another client, or if we get another agreement, and what that agreement will look like. Now, I'm encouraged, that we will, continue, and the clients will continue to come, but it is an uncertainty. Right. And so one thing that we do at Work for Change is that we center our well-being, right? Make sure that we're healthy physically and mentally first. And we honor our time, right? And what that also means is not being anxious about a future that hasn't unfolded yet, right? And so we're going to do our best here at the beginning of the month. And as we're doing our best, it's going to attract more clients. It's going to attract more partnerships. So I don't really worry about the second part, because I know by doing good work up front, the good work will continue on the second end.
It follows. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, Kendra. I think that's really helpful for folks to kind of think about, how do you move forward with success? It's like a artist who has a great album, and then they go, oh, and how do I follow up with a second great album? Are people going to still like it? Is that, there's something about the newness, like, is it going to fade or fizzle? And I think what we've seen now that we're into year 2 is that, the momentum continues to grow, because we're doing the work well, and we're doing it in partnership with our clients. Just to kind of step back for a moment, one of the things that we say to our clients too, and our partners, is equity work is challenging. It should be, right? We're challenging the status quo. We come in and critique, processes and systems and policies, et cetera. But we also say, the process of learning and growing as an individual and as an organization or as an organizational member you can enjoy that process. It can be uncomfortable, but you can also enjoy the process of knowing that you're learning and growing and showing up to work, being better, being more equitable. So for anybody who's thinking about how that work looks, how it feels, Kendra might talk a little bit more about some of our videos that we have out, that we kind of give you a little inside look at what it's like to work with Work for Change.
Yeah, and so I want to share with you our debut, short video of what it's like to work for Change, and what does it really mean to engage in this equitable work. Also, in this very short video, there is a shout out to all our clients from over the last couple of years, and so just take a moment and listen to this. Listen and watch this video if you are in front of a screen.
We should care about workplace equity because it matters for everything that we do. We spend more time at work than we do in many places. We spend more time at work than we do with our families often. So work determines how we feel about ourselves, how we contribute to society, and our access to healthcare and our pay and compensation. So it really matters that people have the best work experiences possible. In a short period of time, we have had exponential growth, not just with our team members, but also with our clients, from for-profit to nonprofit, institutions of higher education, government agencies, and even international corporations. We look forward to any organization, any client who is truly invested in making their workplace better.
I hope you enjoyed that video that was produced and edited by our own Kris Maycomber. So again, thank you for tuning in to episode 49 of the Jobs and Work with Work for Change video. We'll ask you to continue to subscribe, like, and share so that we can work to make the world of work better. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.